Welcome to the Restless Creatives podcast. Comfortable chats with inspirational creatives. Hosted by three self-confessed restless creatives, Lucy Hunter, Fiona Pickles and Bridget Girling. This week we chat with Fiona Humberstone, an incredibly talented brand stylist and consultant. Fiona has written several books on branding clarity and how to use colour psychology to help shape your brand. Her consultancy business has transformed many brands, and at the moment she's working with Middleton Lodge, an exciting project and a beautiful place to stay.
Ready for these?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look somewhat like ours.
Like the gaming ones. You got a big mic that comes around as well. Around you.
Yes. Like Madonna. Why did I do my hair?
Well, exactly.
They are the best things. You don't have to worry
Mine
about
anymore.
So, how are you? You know all three of us, don't you?
Yes. All of you.
So I don't need to introduce you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for asking me.
Yeah, well, it's like roles reversed here, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Invited me onto yours.
Yeah.
I get my own back now.
I know. I'm dreading it.
Before we go any further, we're quite nice, really.
We'll be gentle with you.
We will until the end. No. Do you want to tell us a bit about you for anybody who I can't imagine, but anybody who doesn't know who you are and what you do? Just give us a bit of background.
Yes, there'll be many of you out there. So I'm Fiona Humberstone, and I run a company called the Brand Stylist. And I guess it is dedicated to empowering entrepreneurs to create really incredible brands, and designers too. I've worked in this industry since 2000, so 21 years now. And I've learned so much along the way, and I've seen so much about the opportunity that's created when you create a brand that really works. And I've also seen time and again the fallout that comes when you miss that opportunity, or the heartache that comes when it doesn't go well. Mm-hmm. And I've also seen the pressure on designers to make sure it goes well. And along the way, I've developed processes, and I'm one of those people that kind of looks at things and goes, oh, why does that work? And how can we make that better? So I had a design agency from 2005 to 2012. I sold it when I had Poppy, had a couple of years off. And throughout that time, I'd met so many entrepreneurs that were saying to me, oh, I wish I'd met you 6 months before. I've just had a logo done and I hate it. And I've spent all this money on it and I can't afford to change it. So I'm just going to have to, carry on with it. And I just was like, there's got to be a better way. If people can just understand how branding works, they can make better choices. And if they make better choices, that's got to be good for all of us. So that's kind of where How to Style Your Brand, my first book, came about. And it's just grown from there. So I run courses, workshops, retreats in Mallorca, which Fiona's been to. Write books. I think that, and I'm a consultant as well.
Yeah.
Just that too.
Just that as well. Yeah.
Things.
And a mum.
And a mum. I've got 3 kids. I've got a bad dog, a terrier somewhere around.
Very cute dog.
We're doing up our house. Yeah, lots going on.
I do love the fact that you got a dog, because I never associated you with being a particularly doggy person.
No, I didn't either.
And then you got a dog. I was like, how did that work?
Yeah, I know.
And when we were in Mallorca, you were on the phone talking to the dog.
Was I? God, that's my slip. Here she comes.
No, did someone mention
you?
me?
Are we talking about you? Are we?
She's very cute.
She is really cute. She's so naughty. She's
How
caught
long
a few
have you had
habits
her?
this morning. More than 2 years. So January 2020. 2019.
No dog before
we
at
got her.
all?
No. I come from a family of people who hate dogs. So
what brought this
a natural
huge
thing.
turnaround then?
Kid power.
Kids always nagging. And actually, do you know what it was? My son, he loves animals, and we were in California I'm trying to think where it was, near, around the redwoods, so a couple of hours inland, or quite a lot of hours inland. And we were walking through this creek, and I was freaking out about snakes. And we rounded this corner, and there was just this animal, and just seeing his face, and how, I don't know what animal it was like an ottery type of thing, but just seeing how enchanted he was with this, whatever this animal was, I was like, I can't deny this boy a dog any longer. And we got Lottie, because Annabelle, who's been on a retreat the year before you, Fiona, Annabelle of Bleak House.
Oh, yes.
She had a Welsh Terrier, and he was so cute. He looks like a teddy bear. And I was just like... Edward Lear, yeah. And I didn't want dog hairs all over me or all over the house. So when you want a no shedding dog, that kind of narrows the field quite a lot. Yeah.
Whippets are quite good.
I was desperate for a whippet, because my best friend at school, Rebecca, she had a whippet called Ruby, a really tiny one. Oh. And I would have happily had a whippet, but they're so fragile, aren't they? And I think this roughly tufty.
No, mine's not.
The mini one, yeah. Anyway.
You got Lottie anyway.
We got Lottie, yeah. She keeps.
So how old is your son then?
He's 12.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, middle one.
Yeah, because I hear about the girls quite a lot, and I never really hear about your son.
No, he's quite under the radar, Jas. He plays football. It's just like a boy.
That's because he's a boy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And Poppy was on Gardener's World, wasn't she?
She was, with her sweet peas.
Oh, of course, last year. I remember watching that.
Yeah, and that was so cute, because that all came about through her.
Oh, it wasn't a pushy mum pushing her.
No. And actually, if I'd been pushing, I'd have brushed her hair before, but she watches it with me every week. She loves it. And they were asking, weren't they, for submissions. And she was like, we're going to do it. And she literally, I said, oh, do you not want to do it? No, I want to do it now. So we went outside, and she knew exactly what she wanted to say. And she just took all of that, came from her. I think there was one question I asked her, maybe like, when do we pick them, or how often do we pick them? But all that thing about the pesky twiners and showing, that was all her. So sweet. Yeah.
Bless her little girl. It was very, very cute.
It was very cute.
What did her friends say at school? Mind you, she wasn't at school. Would she have been?
No. So the bummer was, they showed it the weekend the schools broke up. So we'd sent something into school saying Poppy's going to be on Gardener's World, and I had loads of messages. But she didn't get to see any. I mean, I don't think many of her friends watch it anyway, to be fair. But it's quite unusual for a 7-year-old. She had lots of people, in the road and in the village, and then it was so sweet because there's a shop called Alsford Linen Company. I don't know if you follow them, but it's beautiful, just a really lovely shop. And we were in there at some point over the year when you were allowed to shop. And I was in there with Poppy, and Ailey, who runs the shop, said to Poppy, oh, did I see you on Gardener's World? And she was so excited that she'd been spotted. And I didn't tell her that Ailey follows me, and that's how she knew. I really thought this was a bit of fame.
Oh, bless.
She's got a taste.
Well, it's one of those moments in her life that actually could change her whole thought processes and direction, actually. Even if it's not onto TV, or even if it's not gardening, it will have opened her mind to other options, probably. Yeah. Even at that tender age.
Yes, I know.
Either I hate fame and I never want to do this again, or I love it.
I know, it sounds like she likes it.
She likes it,
So what are you involved in at the moment then? Are you doing anything?
Oh, well,
Fabulous.
I'm about to go to Middleton Lodge tomorrow for a 2.5-day shoot, so that'll be amazing.
I've never been one day.
Have you not?
No.
Oh,
We've been
it's
trying
beautiful.
to plan getting there together for so long, and it's
Yeah.
just, it just keeps never happening.
Oh,
It will.
I think it'll be easier next, over the next year. So yeah. So that's really exciting. So we've done a lot of planning. Website, Rebecca's sort of doing behind the scenes. So we're trying to tie that, and we've got Duncan coming to do the video. Cecilina doing, Cecilina's doing the photography. I'm doing lots of styling, and it's kind of a weird one because I deliberately can't take many props because it's got to reflect what you'd see when you're there. So
you're just going sort of open-minded and just
kind of. We've Cecilina and I, we started out with these, we were going to do models and we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and actually they want to make it just about, they're going to look like rooms that people have just left without people in them. So we've come up with a story for each space. So there's various props. I won't give the game away. Various props that I can take, like you would take to a hotel. But I think it'd be really fun. It's going to be exhausting because we're going to do a sunset shoot, and sunset's quite late now. It's like 8:40, and then we're going to do sunrise, which is 5:30. So we're going to be doing double ends.
You have to have a siesta in the
Yes,
middle.
exactly.
I was like, you can't work Cecilina too hard. You're going to have to give us some breaks. Thinking, no, me as well.
But it's Cecilina, really.
Yeah. Just Cecilina. Just go easy on her.
Just give us half an hour in the hot tub. That'll be fine.
And this is all part of the rebranding, I presume.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was on one of your. So Fee did a load of lockdown seminars last year, which were fantastic to really, when we were all in the midst of what the hell is going on, I don't know what to do. Being absolutely lost, watching those. It was fortnightly, I think, wasn't it?
It was to start with. So I did fortnightly, didn't I, from March to July.
And then this year you sort of did a similar thing, didn't you? And I watched, I can't remember which one it was. I did. You'll remember the name.
Well, I've done less than I would have liked. Oh, yes. So the how to create a brand identity that fits
was it. Yes.
Yeah. So I did that. I was going to do it anyway. And then Boris announced the lockdown. And I just thought, let's just make it free for everybody. So that's free forever now. And I went into detail on Middleton Lodge there.
And seeing that branding was just like, it's so exciting.
I know. And there's so much more to come because we've got Gail doing some illustrations and the photography and the video, and it'll all come together. So it's really exciting.
I think what's oozes from you is your passion and your attention to detail. It's beyond where my brain ever goes. Well, I'd like to think I'm passionate. My attention to detail just isn't like
it is in your flowers, though. I think it's just you put it into I've got some flowers behind me. They're nothing like the flowers behind you guys. So
But where does that attention to detail come from? Because you are so focused, and you seem to be very clear on understanding what works and what doesn't work, and how it should look and how it shouldn't look. You seem to, I guess it comes with practice as well, doesn't it? It's
and experience. I think it is that thing of training your eye. I mean, I was listening to your podcast with Fiona, and she was talking about starting out in print, and I had a very different way into print. But I can remember being in Manchester, which was where our head office was, and being in
Manchester.
Salford.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Spent a lot of time at the Tommy Diamonds Hotel.
Okay. I don't know that.
Nothing really to write home about, but we were on Cow Lane in Salford to start with, and then they moved to Trafford Park. But I can remember them really encouraging me to look at, if we were out for dinner, you look at a menu and you see how they've typeset it and what paper it's printed on. And at that point there wasn't really letterpressing or anything fancy, but I think that's like 21 years ago now. But and I can remember just being like, really, am I supposed to notice this stuff? But the more you look, the more you notice, I guess. And the more then you start to get tuned into, well, does that look nice and doesn't that look nice, and why does that make me feel like that? And I think that took a good few years, to put that focus on how things feel. That was probably the color psychology. But I think a lot of it is experience. And then it's a bit like that thing where once you know something, you can't unsee it.
Yes,
so
yeah.
I guess for you, Fiona, it's a bit like you can't go back to Oasis now, as a flower arranging. You just can't go back there. I think once you know this stuff, it's really difficult then to not notice. And obviously people are paying me to spot things, but it gets me into hot water, because I'll go to my sister who's just bought a house, and if I'm constantly being paid to kind of tell people, well, you could do this and you could do that, and let's move this here, I have to remember that she's not
she doesn't want that.
No, she doesn't want to know.
She's quite happy with it there.
Yes,
as it looks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you touched on the colour psychology there, which really, really want to sort of delve into more, because it's one of those things, isn't it, that, so I'll be honest, and we've talked about it before, where we've been kind of skeptical about what's all that about, don't really get it, and you have that sort of thing where it's like, is it just telling you what jumper to wear, and those sort of things, and it is so much not that, isn't it? I mean, we talked about it with Kaz in a little bit of detail, but I'm hoping you can sort of elaborate it, as just to the massive tool that it is for any area, really, isn't it? It's not just printing anything, it's any design, any person can still apply those principles, really.
And I think,
just how did you learn about it in the first place? Sorry.
So that's a good story. So Kaz and I worked together. I started my print and design company in Guildford when I was 25. I just had Ellie, and I needed a business that would pay the mortgage. I needed a business that would, sustain us. So I bought a franchise from the print company I'd worked for, and I recruited Kaz as my first designer, and then she went on to become my studio manager. And basically, we started out selling print with a bit of design on the side, but selling print, as well, yours was different, but I was selling fast, full color print, and it was always about being the cheapest, responding the fastest, getting in there with your quote before anyone else did, following up on the phone. It was pretty exhausting, and
hustle.
Lots of hustle, and lots of like everybody else. The designers are late, the copywriter's late, the marketer's late, but the exhibition is when the exhibition is. And so suddenly there's so much pressure, and people are paying 5p for it. And, it's not a lot of fun. So I started selling more design and really building up that side of my business. And we had this client, Bernie Lady, who used to get print done through us. And like you, I just thought it was nonsense. She'd come in with, and she'd be like, oh, you really need to learn about colour psychology. And I was thinking, I so don't. Everybody knows red's aggressive. And we all know that blue's calming. What else is there to know? Anyway, I had Jasper, and I took 6 months maternity leave. And I did take a proper maternity leave, and I think Kaz and her team really felt it. And so I came back to work, and I thought, right, I've got to do something nice and team building-y to say thank you. And Bernie just got me at a low point, I think, and just kind of persuaded me that we should do it. And I, like you, I was so skeptical. But it was also against this backdrop of never quite, because I don't have a design degree, and I'd grown my design business out of this print franchise, there was probably there was a lot of imposter syndrome, and a lot of feeling like, we weren't really good enough, and we didn't really know that it was right. And a bit of a feeling that we were winging it, probably. And what colour psychology does still does, is bring this whole sense of certainty. And I thought it was really interesting listening to your podcast with Kaz, because Kaz is genuinely the only designer I know that can take the 3 words that I give her in a brief and confidently translate them into something that feels right. You know, I work with loads of other creatives and they're all phenomenal and they're all so inspiring in their, you know, in their creative process. But I know with Kaz that there's a certainty and a nuance and a subtlety that she can get. And, you know, she's done Lucy's branding and she's done Fiona's and she's phenomenal.
She is.
And,
yes.
and it's that kind of that insight, isn't it, that she has, and that, you know, she's a very level-headed person anyway. But there's something more, and the colour psychology, you know, she credited it in with the podcast with you, I think, didn't she? So what I learned from Bernays was that actually it's not really, you know, you see these awful infographics over Pinterest saying red's better for these kind of brands and blue's better for these. It's not really about that. It's about harnessing how the seasons feel and also what happens in nature. So I'll go on to that in a minute, but that enables you to kind of take words and translate them into what that might look like with some certainty. And so it sounds a bit like it might be paint by numbers, and it sounds a bit like it might take away your creativity, but what it actually does is gives you that backbone of confidence that then allows you to push more. So Lucy, as a garden designer, you can use it to understand who your clients are. And I think you were talking with Kaz about looking at what their house is like, and that gives you an insight into, you know, sometimes it's not always reflective of their personalities, but you can get insights, and that allows you to know that they're going to respond to curves, or they're going to hate curves, or they're going to love natural stone, or they're going to want something really shiny. And obviously your creative style comes into it, because you're not going to do lots of chrome and, you know, modern stuff, I don't think, because I don't think it would be your style. But
run for the hills.
Yeah. And as you know, as florists, again, you know, it allows you to understand your creative style, but also understand your clients and understand the spaces that you're working in. It's amazing, and you'll understand why people are responding as they are, which is really powerful.
It's I mean, it's such a huge thing, and there's like so many things I want to ask about, and I'll probably forget all of them. But it was really interesting because we touched on it in Kaz's interview, where she started off with just literally the sort of the template of the Restless Creatives website, and we'd given her no brief or anything. I mean, she'd just finished working with me on my website, and obviously has worked with Lucy.
Yeah.
Was it a couple of years ago? I can't remember when.
It's quite
and knows of Bridget, but hasn't worked with her. And she came and she presented this website, and all 3 of us just went, "Oh my God, that is absolutely perfect."
Yeah.
And you know, we didn't have to give her any brief.
Required.
Wow.
No, it wasn't. And it was just like, wow, okay.
I'm finding that increasingly with Kaz, actually.
Yeah.
But there are no tweaks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it was just, I mean, we had to tweak it because like we didn't have any episodes, so we had to take a load of stuff off, but it was more
creatively and
creatively.
Yeah.
She has a sort of magic touch.
Yeah, she does. She does.
And it was just like, so I said to her, how have you got it so perfect? This wasn't on the podcast, this was, I think, when I was speaking to her on the phone about something of mine. And she's like, well, I know that you're autumn, for want of a better word. And she said, I know Lucy's kind of autumn with a bit of summer, I think she said. And she said, I kind of got the impression that Bridget was probably along those lines as well. And so I just knew that, had we given her something? Oh no, there was the image that you'd done, wasn't there? There was the logo that you'd done. So it had those sort of blues and greens and that through it. And everything else, that's all she had. And it was like, oh my goodness. And it just kind of blows your mind that somebody can come up with something so perfect without any brief. And a lot of it is to do with this colour psychology, isn't it? And understanding you and what you're going to like and what you're not going to like.
Yeah, and I think...
Sorry. No, I was just going to say, but as you said before, it comes with experience, and her experience, and she's worked for such a long time understanding personalities and brand personalities, as you say. So she kind of knew where we were all coming from, I think. Anyway, it was instinctive. She didn't have to ask.
Yeah.
She instinctively knows that.
And I think also it's about getting people to respond to your brand at an instinctive level, or a garden sign, or an installation, or whatever it is. It's that, and I think it just gives you so much confidence. So I just finished Elevate. We did, which is my mentoring program for brand designers, and that's, it's a very bespoke thing where they have 3 projects, and each fortnight they pick from one of those 3 projects and they come up with a brand identity, and then the next week they do the next, and I give them feedback along the way. And it's pretty intense because they're coming up with designs in a week, and then I'm feeding back, and it's about meeting them at their level. And I deliberately this time made sure the briefs were really focused. So normally I would give them the kind of brief that you would get from a client. So there'd be lots of red herrings in there, lots of contradictions. And your job as a designer would be to pick through that and kind of go, are you sure you mean this and this? Well, I kind of thought, no, I want to get them really focused and really confident on delivering to a brief. So let's take out the contradictions and just create a really focused brief. But even that is really challenging for people, because how do you know that something feels natural and wild and organic? How do you translate that? You could argue it's subjective, but colour psychology just helps give a foundation. And then Bridget's version of wild and organic will be different to Fiona's, because you're different, you've got different creative views, but it gives you something solid to base it on. So it's really, really powerful, and it's all about the seasons. Do you want me to just outline those quickly?
If you don't mind, because I think even the words just kind of make people think about, like, well, what do you mean? Is it like autumn's your favourite season? And it's not that
exactly.
at all, is it?
Or when do you start your business, or when are you busiest? It's none of that at all. So it has to start with clarity. You have to start from a point of knowing. I always call it the essence of your business. What does it boil down to? So the seasons, it starts with the essence of your business. So what is it that makes your business unique? What sets it apart? What magic do you bring? So as creatives, I always think that's to do with your creative style. So, if Bridget is asked to do flowers for a beautiful house or a wedding or an event, they're going to be asking Bridget because she's amazing at what she does. And Bridget would do them differently to Lucy or Fiona. So for me, that's kind of what your brand needs to communicate. It needs to encapsulate what you're getting from any of you. If you're not a creative, and I'm sure there'll be lots of non-creatives as well listening to this. So if your business isn't a creative business, then it's kind of, what is it that sets you apart? It might be your approach, it might be your product. But, if you can distill that down to 3 words and get really clear on what your business is and what sets it apart, that's the starting point. And then it's about thinking, well, who's going to value that? And Fiona and I have talked about this on her podcast with me, about that journey from being someone that did the flowers to internationally renowned floral designer. But it's not just about finding people that will pay, it's about finding people that actually value what you have to bring. And then once you know who those people are, what do they want to see from you? What do they need to see from your business? How do they need to feel about it? So I like to start with 3 words that define the essence of your brand.
And do you like people to come up with those words intuitively, just like sort of really quickly, or do you want them to really think about those words?
So if I'm working in a session, like a remote session or in a day with a client, I just get them to talk, and I tend to come up with probably a list of about 12, 15 words with them as I'm listening to what they're saying. And then I tend to put them in columns, because what you tend to find is that words tend to go together. I'll see if I can find some examples from this week. Yeah, so there'll always be words that kind of interlink, and words that do the same job. Does that make sense? So, somebody might say, oh, I want my brand to feel warm and cozy, and for me, those two words, they're similar. They do the same kind of job. So you don't necessarily need to waste one of your 3 words on warm and cozy. You can get that same feeling. So I like to put them into columns, and they tend to naturally fall into 3 columns. Irritatingly, I can't find any of them now. But I had a client recently, heirloom, I think was one of her words. Heirloom and timeless feels similar to heirloom, thing. Same with legacy, they all fit really nicely together. Beautiful, I think, was another one of her words that we did put in a separate space. I can't remember what the other one was. Might have been elegant, I don't know. So they might be close together, they might be further apart, depending on what brand I'm working on. But generally, if I'm working with someone, I think the way my brain works is I don't necessarily want them to come to me with 3 words. I need to go through that process of distilling and refining and editing and curating, because that's how I get to understand things, and then I know it's right. And I think there's sort of this sense that you get in your body almost of how those words feel, that then allows me to look at things on Pinterest and go, oh, that feels right or not. So yeah, it tends to be a bit of a process. And it's quite a collaborative process as well. So I don't tend to impose those words on someone.
No, it's funny because when we were doing mine, so Fiona did the creative direction for my branding. And I don't know if it helps knowing me to a degree or hinders, but
No,
you kind of knew quite a lot about me anyway, didn't you? Because we worked together for quite a lot of years, or I've worked with you for quite a lot of years. But we had a conversation. So you came up with the creative direction, and you do the bit where there's like the words that sum you up and the words that you're not. And one of those words was artisan for me. And we had quite a long conversation over artisan, didn't we?
Yeah. And did we settle on artistic in the end rather than artisan?
I think we kept artisan in because I think we felt it was still that sort of artisan feel.
Yeah.
But I just didn't want to go too down the sort of rustic route. Exactly.
And chunky. And work was never chunky, so we needed that refinement, didn't we?
Yeah. So, but it was interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of the words we just sort of kind of read over, but yeah, there's the odd one that sticks on, and I think between us we did decide to keep it in. But it's all really valuable to the next stage, I imagine. So it's. But I mean, you'd already come up with, and again, your creative direction was just perfect. It's kind of got me completely. Yeah. So my 3 words are wild. It used to be my maiden name. Yeah. Artistic and dramatic.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And I still use those words, so I use them if I'm sort of like doing things. It's like, does it fit to one of these 3 words? And if it doesn't, if it's looking a little bit twee or something, it's like, okay, well, that's not right really. And it's good to use that as your
keep you focused.
It's your North Star, I think you call it.
Yeah, exactly. And I think some of it's semantics. So I saw something yesterday and someone was talking about boho, and boho for me conjures up a very distinct vision of someone wafting around with feathers in their hair and floaty dresses. And Elizabeth and I were talking about, well, is that summer or autumn? And for me, I was like, well, of course it's summer. It's got to be summer. It's all floaty and wafty and quite ethereal. And she was like, well, I see it as autumn. And I think it's because she sees something different in her head when she thinks about, well, probably bohemian more than boho. But I love that kind of geeky semantic thing, and going back to Bridget about I'm very clear on things, I think I've had so much practice at challenging words and going, well, what do I mean by that word, and where does that word fit with how that feels? Yeah, probably drive people demented.
No, but it's sort of like it's really clear thinking as well, isn't it? And I think a lot of us probably also don't realize exactly what words we do use, and you're probably much more conscious of it. You know, we're just sort of like saying things and don't actually really mean that, probably. You know, it's maybe something slightly different, but you're much more deliberate in that. So just to go back to the seasons thing, where does the, you know, how what is a winter and what is a summer, and can you elaborate on that?
I never got there, did I? Because we had all those headphone issues. Okay, so when you start to really notice how the seasons feel and what's happening in nature, you will make lots of connections to how that translates to design or interiors or clothes or everything. It's very different to well, anyway, yeah, it's a whole new approach that's very much based around personalities rather than looks. So if you've had your colours done and you've had someone put swatches over you, they tend to be looking at what colour's your hair. And actually lots of us have our hair dyed. So, you know, this is more about what's within the brand or what's within the person. So if we think about spring, first of all, you know, this year more than ever, it's been a really hard winter. And just the promise that comes from that sign of spring, you know, those tiny leaves bursting into bud, the blossom, first of all, you know, that sense of hope and optimism and creativity and uplift. And there's a sense of lightness in the air. It's fun. Spring is fun. It's bouncy. It's bubbly. It's young. Everything's very small and dainty and cute and pretty. And if you think about what that looks like, colours are light and clear and soft, and everything's very small. You have very fine lines. You know, you've got tiny, tiny seedlings with skinny, skinny stems, and everything is really delicate, and it's very soft as well. It's very malleable. Summer is the one that foxes everyone, because if you go into the shops in summer, you tend to see a lot of bright colours, and you know, you combine that with bright skies and holidays in the Med, and it does get confusing. But Angela Wright, who's the woman that founded this whole philosophy, it's called the colour effects philosophy, and she trained Bernays, who trained me, and Kaz. She was based in the Lake District, so she was looking at what happens to nature in Britain. And actually what happens is growth matures, it becomes fuller, it becomes quite graceful and wafty. So you get, you know, you get those lovely wildflower meadows, you get the borders filling out with spires and umbellifiers, and everything's got a very graceful, elegant, light looseness about it. Everything's still pretty delicate, but you also have that solidity of structure. It's quite formal summer. So I quite often think of Italianate gardens as being quite summer, because you have that backbone of, you know, the box and the cypress trees and the olive, you know, so colour wise, I think of David Austin roses, I think of lavender, I think of olive trees, you know, it's those, summer's very calm. And if you want a shortcut for quality and classiness, it's summer. It's still very delicate. Yeah, flowy lines, umbellifiers, but there's a lightness and a looseness about it, with a backbone of formality. Autumn is the one that everybody can connect with. It's that real palpable sense of energy forward, you know, cracking on with things. It's efficient. There's a real sense of history. So with summer, it tends to be formality and upholding tradition and heritage.
with autumn, it's that strong sense of history and looking to the past to build for the future. It's a season of challenge and, you know, challenging the norms and campaigning and fighting for the underdog. It's very passionate. It's all about substance. And if you think about what's going on in nature, those teeny tiny amaranthus seedlings are suddenly 1.5 meters tall with massive stems and huge, great big flowers on them. And you've got dahlias and you've got sunflowers, and everything's got substance. And Angela Wright talks about autumn being nature's last act of defiance, which I think is such a good way of putting it. You know, you've got these incredible colours, but you also have things like cafe au lait dahlias, so you've got that softness as well. But you will have, even in a cafe au lait dahlia, you've got an intensity that isn't there in spring blossom or in a spring tulip. So autumn is robust, it's earthy, it's organic, there's a strong connection to the land, to community, to thinking beyond yourself, really. Autumnal people like to do things well, and they'll be very ambitious, but they are not materialistic. And I kind of think actually not a season of aesthetes, however you say it, you know, it's not about aesthetics as much. It's about, you know, the process. And then winter, by contrast, is the season of extremes. So you have those miserable grey days that just go on forever, where you only see one colour. There's a field behind the woods behind our house, and, you know, that's ploughed. And then you've got all the dead, you know, cow parsley and all the hemlock and the bare tree. And, you know, you just see shades of browny grey. With the sky. It's miserable. But then you have those amazing days with bright sunshine and, you know, the amazing frosts or the snow, or, you know, you've got things like witch hazel and sarcocoa and those incredibly intense. So when winter people walk into a room, everybody notices. They just have this kind of drama about them. And it's the same with the brand. It's a season of extremes. So it's extremely luxury, or it's extremely no frills, or it's extremely opulent, or extremely minimalist. But there's no compromise. It's uncompromising. It's very, decisive. It's a season for experts generally. You know, I mean, everyone feels like they have to be an expert, but if you are selling your expertise rather than selling your creativity, you know, so McQueen's is right to be, as a florist, right to be a winter brand, because, you know, they're obviously a big part of their business is flower school, but also their arrangements are really big, aren't they? And they're very, winter's very cutting edge as well. I think that's the other thing. So it's very forward looking. Spring's forward looking, but winter is, you know, is there. Color wise, it's cool, intense, clear. It's the only season that you put black in. So, and this is the other really clever thing with color psychology is, you know, I mean, for me, it's Liberty London. You walk into that building and I just get this immediate sort of connection with it. And I think that's because it knows what it is as a brand, and it, you know, it just connects with me as a person. And sometimes you'll walk into a space and you'll be like, oh, it's just I don't like it, and you won't necessarily know why. And quite often that's because something's jarring. So color psychology allows you to filter that stuff out, and very often with a brand it will be creating that jarring feel because you'll have maybe summer colors with black. Does that give a bit of an overview?
Yeah, absolutely. And it just opens up so many different questions as well, and it's, you know, because when you were talking about spring, I was like, yeah, but I love spring and I love all the new stuff, but any spring branding just makes me really uncomfortable, because like you say, it's very, is twee the right word? I'm not sure if it is.
Think
But it's
of
very
polka dots and
pretty
ditzy, don't you?
Absolutely,
I think twee isn't necessarily the right word, but whimsical definitely
yes,
is.
yes, that's probably a better word. Yeah.
And you've raised a really good point, which is that each season has its negatives, or Elizabeth is telling me to call them limiting qualities instead of negatives. And I think it's really good to be aware of that. So spring, the limiting quality of spring, it can be that it can be quite down market, it can be quite superficial, it can be quite surface level. It can be lacking in substance. And so as an autumnal person, you're going to rail against that. It's not going to have the oomph for you. The flip side is autumn can be overbearing. They can be unpredictable. They can be very temperamental, and as brands, I think I am careful sometimes to put a brand into autumn because it can be quite messy, or it can be too heavy. So, each season, summer can be a bit too aloof. It can be a bit pompous. It can be a bit, well, actually, autumn can be pompous as well. Autumn can really, that kind of educational snobbery, that bookish snobbery. We've been watching loads of Sherlock, and, Sherlock and his brother, complete autumnal, caricatures. And then winter can be quite mean, so all of these seasons have positives and negatives. Or
do you have clients where you tell them the season they are and they go, but I don't want to be that season? And then you have to sort of talk them through it.
Yeah.
Them down.
I only ever learned to do brand colours, and Bernay taught us so much about the seasonal personalities and the colour, and then all the stuff with pattern and typefaces and texture and all that stuff I've developed over the years. And I guess along that journey, I'm kind of looking at how people are behaving and thinking, oh, they're doing that because they themselves are spring and their brand is winter or whatever. But I've never been trained to do personal colour. So I'm very careful not to tell people that they are a season, because people get really upset. And also, I might get it wrong. I know that I'm not going to get a brand wrong, but I don't want to tell, they are interlinked massively, but it's just not what I want to be doing. So one of the things, yes, people kind of say to me, when I'm working with a client one-to-one, I'm actually generally not even talking to them about what season their brand is. I don't think I said to you, Fiona, your brand has to be autumn. It's a framework for me to kind of,
it's your tool.
Yeah. That's jarring. Why is that thing sticking out? And how do we make it make more sense? Or, is that something to let go of? And what it helps you navigate your way through the contradictions. I've learned not to tell people their brands are a particular season, but I use it a lot in teaching, because how else do people know how their brands should be? And then I'm constantly saying to people, it's not about you, it's about your brand.
It's not all about you.
So you could be a spring personality but be a winter brand.
Yeah, and I am a spring autumn personality, but my brand is winter spring and is growing up into a wintry summery brand.
Oh, hello.
Oh, that just blows my mind. That does.
A real head mess. But I think all the time it's about, so when I started the Brand Stylist, it was all about making branding accessible and clarity, and it being approachable and it being fun and creative. And it is still all those things. But, the landscape's changed massively in the 7 years that I've been running the Brand Stylist. And I was the only person doing what I did when I started. And I was 7 years younger and had 7 years less experience than I do now. And so now I'm looking at things thinking, well, actually, I don't only want branding to be fun. I want people to do it well. And that's what sets me apart. And so actually the spring, whoa, this is fun. No, you need to do it properly. I need to take the spring out of my brand. But nature and the seasons and I have that lightness of touch, particularly if I style something. I mean, you know, this room is awaiting renovation, so it's not necessarily reflective of my style particularly. You know, it's just some nice things in here, but
it's funny you should say that. Sorry to cut across you, but saying that about fun, it reminds me of our conversations that we had about our Fun 5. So we started came up with a hashtag, and we just wanted to use something that referred to our questions that we use at the end.
Yes.
And we started off calling it TRC Fun 5, and we all had a problem with the word fun.
Yeah.
Because it kind of like,
it's spring,
trivialized it, and it just
made us think
we want
pajamas.
it to be fun. And we've taken it out, and it's now TRC 5. But it's really interesting that you use that analogy, because we do want people to have fun, but we didn't want to sort of trivialize it.
Yeah, so. exactly. And it's not that you have to take yourself too seriously, but I think it's just, what are the most important things that you're trying to get across? You can't be all things to all people as a brand. You have to pull out the most important things, and you have to pull out the things that set you apart. You know, if people want easy answers, I'll make it as fun and as easy and as accessible as possible. But actually, you know, with something like brand clarity, I'm saying it's not easy to find clarity. You need to work at it, and I'll walk you through the process and I'll support you. But it's not easy, and it shouldn't be easy.
No.
You know? Yeah.
It's very interesting though, because it feels like, I guess that's why I asked you the question. Do people feel a bit kind of affronted sometimes? You go, well, your business, your company is clearly winter. I know you wanted to be spring, but you're not.
Yeah, but you're mean and you're winter.
Yes. Well, I guess that's it. People don't see the positives. People hear the negatives, don't they? Because that's just what human beings do. So they're going to go, oh, well, what's the downside to that? That particular season. Yeah. Oh, you mustn't think I'm mean. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
But presumably over time, your business develops as well and change, or maybe it doesn't, but maybe it does change from one thing to another. It doesn't. Does
That's
that happen?
such a good question. I think it absolutely can. So, you know, my business is definitely. So first of all, I was so resistant to winter. I'd had an autumnal branding agency before, and I'd sometimes just never felt that we quite measured up. You know, we were always a bit messy, or a bit, when we'd get amazing work. But we also, sometimes we'd get someone very stylish and well put together come in, you know, and that was where I was like, oh, I think we're a bit messy. You know, it always made me feel a bit inadequate, I suppose. And so I think I felt for the brand stylist that I didn't want to lean into that autumnal space, because it is about visuals. And I do think autumn is less visual than the other seasons, much less materialistic and not at all superficial. And lots of branding and communications agencies will fit into spring. But because at this point, I've been doing branding for 14 years and I really knew my stuff, I felt like there had to be reluctantly some winter in there. But I personally was doing that thing of, I don't want to be mean, I don't wear black, and I don't want to wear black, and it took me a really long time to kind of own the winter space. And I always felt like winter was what was needed for my brand, but spring connected it back to me. And that sort of sense of inspiration that you might get from a workshop, or that clarity that I bring when I'm hopefully explaining something. But you're right in that as my business has evolved, I'm partly reacting to my ambitions changing and how I want people to see my brand, and I'm partly reacting to how the industry has evolved and how there's more people educating people around branding. So I'm wanting to kind of make sure that I've got my space. And so in my case, it has changed. I don't think it's inevitable that it will. So I think it's very unlikely, for example, that Fiona's brand would go. It's not like you graduate from spring to summer to autumn to winter. So I think it's very unlikely that Fiona's brand would move into winter as it grows up. I just don't think that would happen, because I think your style is so rooted in who you are as a person. But it can, it absolutely can change, but it's not inevitable.
Yeah. No, it's fascinating. You could talk about it for hours and hours.
No, it's amazing.
But you wrote so we included a link to your piece on Kaz's episode as well, because you wrote a whole thing about it, didn't you?
Yeah, and
you've got a book out. You've got a book out.
It's a handbook. We're calling it a handbook.
Oh, okay.
Only because it's about 90 pages, and I wanted something. This would have been so helpful for me when I was first learning. I remember Kaz and I printed out these words for all the seasons, and we printed out what the colours meant. We had them stuck on our studio wall, and we were constantly going back and referencing, I remember purple, quality, vision, purpose, and because we were an autumnal design agency, all the brands we were doing were quality, vision, purpose, and it was 2011, so purple was very, aubergine was very of the moment. Lots of our brands were aubergine purple. So I just wanted something that people could kind of access as they worked through, that would sit alongside the books and the courses. So.
And is that aimed at brand stylists, or is that aimed at sort of everybody?
Yeah, I kind of wrote it with my Elevate people in mind, so brand stylists, but no, it's for anybody that wants to use colour psychology, apply colour psychology to what they're doing. So it works for any creative really. And it's not, lots of my two books are 200-300 pages long, and they go in depth. This is not designed to kind of be everything you could ever know about colour psychology. It's meant to be a reference guide, a handbook. There's lots in there on how to use it and how the seasons work, and lots of context. But I think the value is in having something that you can access quickly, so you can kind of go, okay, I know this bride is summer, so what kind of shapes and ribbons is she going to respond to best?
It's fabulous. Thank you. Excellent. So apart from Middleton Lodge, when you off to Middleton Lodge?
Tomorrow afternoon. I've got a haircut at last in the morning. and I know I can't wait. And then I've got a client, and then I'm going in the afternoon.
And you're there for a couple of days, did you say?
Yeah, there shooting till Friday night, and then Pete is bringing the kids up and the dog up. I'm going to stay till Monday, so it'd be really
lovely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh. And apart from that, have you got anything else in the pipeline? I'm sure you have, because you're always doing about 1,000,001
I know. So I'm going to work on, I've got the Media Kit Mastered course coming out as a self-paced course. Duncan's just finalising the videos, so that will hopefully come out next week. And then I'm going to do a colour psychology for brand designers course.
Okay. Wow.
So that's my next job.
I have to say the media kit thing is a massive thing, and I always recommend it to people because it can really sort of transform the way you communicate with your customers.
And how much time you spend on managing inquiries. And I hate having that pricing conversation with people, so it's just a lovely way of just kind of going, I don't think about this is what I charge.
It's transformed the way I work that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Kaz did a beautiful one, didn't she? I think
she did. And then after I listened to your lectures last year, during lockdown, I went away and did one for the landscaping side as well. Oh my goodness! I mean, I've been doing it for 20 years, and yet I still struggle with the pricing. So it's so much easier to say, "This is what I do. This is what it starts from." You know, if you want to talk more, brilliant. You know, so you've got over that really awkward conversation about pricing.
Well, it makes it very clear that it's not for negotiation, really, doesn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It does.
It's there. That's what it costs.
Yeah, but I think more than that, I don't think any creative person, 20 years experience or not, needs to hear that silence or that you're too expensive. I don't think it helps you do your best work, or
no, it doesn't. Absolutely.
Your confidence as a creative is so important. You need to be talking to people that think you're amazing and have got the money to spend.
I think you're worth what you're asking for.
And not even just I want to pay less. I want to pay nothing in some instances, which is fabulous.
And not everyone is your client, so they might think you're amazing. They might have been following you on Instagram, but you know, a media kit allows you to kind of go, well, this is where my pricing starts. Either you've got that money or you haven't, without saying it in an aggressive or nasty way. You know, we're doing our house up at the moment, and there are so many situations where we just don't have that budget, and that's okay. And I don't want to be having that conversation with someone either.
No.
So it just takes all that out and means that you can just focus on the people that tell you you're amazing.
Yeah, exactly.
And you can put all your little foibles that, you know, you might not like doing something, you can put that and incorporating it as a frequently asked question or something. You know, it's just it's a way of saying, and by the way, I don't do this. So don't even ask me. In a very nice way.
Totally.
No, it is brilliant. Anyway, sorry, Carrie, that was just to sort of pick you up on the media kit thing. What else did you have on?
What else have I got on?
You're doing a thing on photo shoots at the moment, are you? Or is that just
that was just like
a blog post? Just
a blog post and an IGTV, just because it's on my mind. And also, I think a lot of people are doing shoots. At long last, we suddenly feel like we can get out there and start getting our websites together and just getting some fresh content, don't we? So I just wanted to do something while I was in the middle of prepping Middleton Lodge that just would help that a bit. But I think my big focus, I've sort of got the courses to a point where as an entrepreneur, I've got all the courses that will brand you, from, you know, the clarity to the name, to the vision, to the working with a designer and beyond. But I think there's so much I can offer in terms of supporting designers in their process and helping them bring that level of certainty and confidence to their work that then allows them to get bigger projects and work on the stuff that they love doing. So that is my big focus really for the rest of this year, is building up those courses.
Stuff for us.
I love the way you and you're really disciplined about your boundaries as well, aren't you? And I think that always blows my mind, you know, so you take 3 weeks off at Easter, and your summer holidays are sort of like sacrosanct, aren't they? And so you manage to pack everything else in between all that. It's like, oh my goodness.
But I think the two, is it symbiotic? Is that the word? I think that came from having Ellie really young and having a mum that didn't work, and feeling like I needed to make sure that I didn't miss out on Ellie growing up. And when you've got quite a big business with lots of overheads and lots of staff, you can't take the time off that you want. So I did take quite a lot of holidays out, but I wasn't as free as I am now. So when I started the Brand Stylist, I was really clear that I was only going to work in term times. And to start with, so I think I started when Poppy was about 18 months I didn't have any childcare. And then I only had the sort of the free stuff from nursery. So I think I had until she was 4, I think I only had about 15 hours a week. So I got really good at not wafting around having coffees with people, you know, not doing all that stuff that I get that it massively feeds your inspiration, but I'm really creative. So I found that as long as I was doing baking and sewing and gardening and flowers, that actually my inspiration levels were pretty high and I could go into work mega focused. And I think it's just come from that. I work really hard in term time, but then I have a nice break. And so then I come back refreshed. And it's been hard this year for everybody, hasn't it? And, you know, it's definitely Easter I was really ill and we didn't go anywhere. So I haven't come back with this normal surge of inspiration that I would normally have from a 2-week break. But I think that will change with going up north this week and just, you know, seeing some different things.
But if you get a chance, call in for a coffee on your way back.
Oh,
I'm sure you.
We're going to have a lot of people in tow, but yeah.
Yeah, that's true. 5,000 people in the garden. Anyway, we'll get on with the fun 5, and then
Fun 5.
So I've written some down. Let me get my little list. So first one: wine or gin?
Oh, wine, sparkling wine.
Excellent. Nice. That was concise. And what did you have for supper last night?
We had Jasper's favourite, which is a Donna Hay teriyaki salmon from Weeklight. It's really nice. I get a big side of salmon, and you mix maple syrup and soy sauce, 1/4 cup of each, and you grate in some. I have frozen ginger in the, you know, because it grates easily. Garlic clove, and you bring it to the boil, and then you pour it over the skinned salmon. You bake it. You have it with jasmine rice and little gem lettuces and spring onions and snow peas and coriander.
Oh my goodness,
That's so posh.
Like a restaurant menu, doesn't it?
Exactly. We had spag bowl.
That's our beans on toast into
tuna pasta doesn't really cut it.
Blimey.
I mean, I've got to put a recipe on the website page.
Oh,
as well.
Yes, I think you should
That's
be.
fabulous. Yeah. I actually might try that as well.
It's really the whole book. It does sound super fancy, but it's called Weeklight, and it is super fast and really healthy recipes. I mean, the 1/4 cup of maple syrup, but then there's 5 of us, so you know, it's not too much, but it's just really quick and easy and quite hands off, especially if you buy the pouches of rice.
Is that Week, W-E-E-K, light?
Week, W-E-E-K, light. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I might have to look that up. Reminds me Brian was all the cooking.
I love cooking. A bit over it now because we haven't been anywhere. I've done a lot, but I do love cooking, and I always cook for the kids from scratch, and it's just part of me and my sanity, I suppose. Yeah.
Fabulous. Might have to buy that for Brian.
Yeah.
Brian. There you go, dear. Okay, tell us something unexpected about you.
I don't know. There's loads of unexpected about me, really. I mean, my dad's Iranian. Did you know that?
I had forgotten, but yes, I had known that.
Bridget didn't know that.
No, I didn't know that.
So he's Iranian, and he worked for the Iranian oil company. He met my mum in Southampton. They moved back to Karg Island, which is an oil island in the Gulf, where they had me. And I think they lived quite a fabulous expat lifestyle for a little while. And they lived, we lived through the revolution. And then I was about 18 months and the war had started. And Mum said it was terrifying because obviously the Iraqis were trying to bomb Karg Island. So there was a board over my cot to stop shrapnel falling in at night. I mean, imagine, she was pregnant with my sister. She was probably only 23 at this point.
Gosh.
My granny was over here. I mean, it wasn't like you could text, was it?
No.
So she didn't know whether mum was alive or not. And they didn't know how they were going to get off the island. And then I think they got some phone call or something saying there's a boat going to the mainland in 4 hours. And from there, she got a coach with a whole load of other expat wives, but the men had to stay behind. So she didn't know whether Dad would make it off the island or not. It must have been hideous.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Blimey.
Yeah.
I do love these unexpected ones.
So
you do find unexpected stuff, aren't it?
So she came to England at that point. She
So
came
yeah,
back.
she came to England, lived with my granny.
Did your dad follow?
Yeah, I don't quite know when, but he got back before my sister was born. I mean, they lost everything, literally, you know.
They just left.
Yeah. Yeah. And we were really not wealthy, it's an understatement, growing up. I mean, we lived in a lovely house in the New Forest, and mum had this amazing garden, and she grew lots, and we had amazing food, and you know, we were really looked after. But I mean, we were real jumble sale clothes, and you know, you just kind of think, God, they'd gone from this amazing expat lifestyle, and yeah, I wonder whether some of it was racism in the UK, because you know, my dad, the only job he could get was as a milkman in the 80s. So while everyone was Thatcheriting, he was, yeah, dealing with that. And you know, we were at a tiny school in the forest, and yeah, I can distinctly remember people saying some not nice things to my dad.
Really?
Yeah. I remember some nice guy in the village told him to go back to where the camels come home from. And it's amazing, like, what you remember. I mean, that just is nothing, is it, compared to the stuff you hear now? But about
but the fact that you remember it, it's
so
there.
vividly. Yeah, and you think, God, if I remember that, which it really is not a big deal, but I remember him being very upset. And you think about some of the stuff now that you hear other people having gone through. I just, yeah, mind blowing. We need to change a lot of stuff, don't we?
Yeah,
we do.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not.
No, that's fine. Just feels a bit irrelevant asking you any other questions.
Yeah.
A bit of a mood switch.
That's why I love gardening, I think, because you know, mum
and food, because it's a massive thing for Iranians.
Huge. Iranians, just, it's all about generosity and sharing food, and yeah, you know, really, you know, if somebody comes to the house, you've got to offer them food, and you have to welcome them in. And yeah, definitely all a big part of that. And it's so funny, because when Otto Lengi's cookbooks came out, I was like, oh, but I've been eating this stuff forever. You know, this is what we eat, and suddenly it's cool. This is quite nice.
Did I ask you that question?
What's that?
What question?
Give us a clue. I've asked you the question. So, switching up completely, can you dance?
No.
Okay.
I cannot dance at all. I have absolutely no rhythm. I used to do like that, and my kids always laugh at my dancing. I used to look like Claire from Steps when I was at university, and Steps were big at that point. I had short hair. Pete saw a picture of me, and he was like, "Please, can you never get hair? You never cut your hair that short again." I can vividly remember being at Pop-Tart. I went to Sheffield University, and there was a night called Pop-Tarts, and I'd really give it some then, definitely. But now I have daughters that can dance. I'm very clear that I cannot dance.
You stay on the sofa.
Yeah.
Oh, bless you. And finally, what would be the one thing you took on a desert island?
Oh my gosh. Oh,
I always regret asking people this, because I don't know how I would answer that.
I actually don't know. Sarah Raven says you should take a packet of spinach seed, but I think, oh, how boring.
Yes.
Yes. You can do so much with spinach.
You'd be a bit fed up, wouldn't you, after a week?
I don't know.
I can't imagine spinach growing in sand, assuming it's a
That's
desert
exactly
island
what
that's
I'm
sandy.
Yeah. I don't know. I've got a complete blank. Maybe I'd take some pencils and a sketchbook and...
That's two things.
Okay.
Oh, you keep saying this, Luce.
Lucy's very fierce about this.
Okay, I'll take a bag, Lucy. Cool. A bag of pencils and paints.
Okay.
The pencil is actually attached to the pad
Yeah.
by string.
Yeah. A very long piece.
Oh, well, fabulous. Thank you so much for
Oh.
coming on. It's been brilliant. And I could go into that colour psychology so much more. It's amazing.
Honestly, it's fascinating. Kaz is right. You know, when she says that she's still learning about it, it's one of those things. But just, you know, at a really lovely level, it helps me give people better presents because I can kind of predict what they're going to like and how they'll respond. I think that's a really nice thing to be able to do.
It's a really lovely thought. Yeah.
You know they're going to love.
Yeah. Fabulous. Well, we'll let you get packing for Middleton.
Oh, have a fabulous time.
Thank you so much for having me.
No, thank you for joining us. I'm sure you're really busy and can do without it. But
I've loved it. I've loved it.
I do enjoy your lovely weekend when it comes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Long awaited, isn't it?
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye. Do I leave now?
Yes.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Restless Creatives podcast. To ensure you don't miss our next episode, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, the Restless Creatives podcast. If you'd prefer to listen rather than watch us, you can catch us on one of your favoured podcast providers. For more sneak peeks and behind-the-scenes fun, visit our Instagram at the.restlesscreatives or visit our website, therestlesscreatives.co.uk.